Hey everyone, Mr. Say here. This is a guide for round 3 of the 2021 FIA Manufacturer Series, which is taking place at Fuji International Speedway with the Group 3 cars. And we are doing this on the racing soft tires, and the brake balance is 0 for time trial, -1 for qualifying, and +1 to +2 for the race. Your first braking point just after you pass the 150 meter board, so I start to brake right around here just before the grandstands on the left. Brake hard for a short while, turn in, ease off of the brakes, and once you hit the apex, you want to start to get on the throttle as soon as you can. Then bring yourself towards the right and brake before you reach the orange marker that is on the right in between the 150 meter board. Quick burst of braking, take advantage of the curves. And then for this turn, you want to use the paths on the right as your apexes. So ease off of throttle, and once you pass the second path on the right, you can then fully accelerate. Then look for this orange marker on the right, brake before you pass it, brake hard for a short moment, slowly ease off of the brakes and gently get on the throttle, especially for understeer cars like the Viper. You want to take your time getting on the throttle so you don't go off the track. Bring yourself to the left, brake just as you go under the Dunlop sign. So this is going to be exactly where I start to brake. Brake hard for a short while and try to take advantage of the apex and try to take advantage of the curbs. So slowly ease off of the brakes, go down to first gear for a moment if you need to. Lots of throttle control. Get on the throttle as soon as you can and beat the devil out of the cone if you have those on. And then you want to brake just as the turf on the left starts. Use a little bit of braking, just fine tune the car into the turn, get on the throttle, and just as the curb on the left ends, you want to use a lot of braking control. You can use braking and throttle if you want to keep the car nice and stable. Just try to go for a late apex so you can get on the throttle as soon as you can. And treat the final turn just like the turn we just went through. Brake just as we pass the path on the right. Nice and easy on the brakes. Let the car do the rotation. Go for a late apex, which is where the white marker on the right is. Get on the throttle as soon as you can and you are good to go. We'll finish up this lap and then we'll go ahead and move on over to the qualifying strategies. So as we're about to transition over to the qualifying strategies, you have 5 minutes to try to get a good qualifying time. So this will give you about 2 to 3 chances to try to get a good qualifying time. Most people will have 2 chances to get the best qualifying time possible. So you have a super long main straight, which means that Slipstream is going to be extremely useful. So you want to try to take advantage of it so your car can go a little bit faster and you can easily shave off a bit of time. So you want to be within 3/4 of a second behind someone as you're about to start going down the main straight so you can take advantage of the Slipstream. Especially if you're in a handling car or just a car that doesn't have a good top speed, you definitely want to take advantage of this in the qualifying and in the race. So for example, right now, the Mazda RX Vision just up ahead, they didn't get a good qualifying time, neither did I. But we're going to go ahead and start another qualifying lap. And this is actually our last qualifying lap that we're about to start. And the Mazda, he's going to be hanging out right behind us, or yeah, he's just barely in the Slipstream range, which is going to help him go a bit faster, which means that he'll be able to shave off a bit of time simply by staying under our Slipstream. So right now we're going about 164 and they should be going a little bit faster than us, so they should be hitting 170 just before we do, just before we have to start to brake. Also, if you're under someone's Slipstream, and this applies for both the qualifying and the race, make sure you brake a little earlier, because under the slipstream you're going to be going a bit faster than usual. And because you're going faster than usual, this means that you need a larger braking distance so you can slow down to make the turn. So we're going through this whole qualifying lap because this one was an okay lap. I did make some mistakes, but this one was okay enough for me to say, okay, let's put this in the video. And we're actually going to eventually take advantage of the slipstream of the Corvette that is hanging out in front of us. Luckily, we got in the slipstream just as we exited the final turn. The Mazda behind us still in our slipstream, and it's pretty much going to, I'll say, nullify our mistakes, because this wasn't my best qualifying lap. I did have some mistakes, but with the slipstream, it helped me, at least. It helped me get rid of those mistakes. So we're definitely in the slipstream of the Corvette now, and it's going to help us go a little bit faster, which will be useful as we're about to cross the start-finish line. The Mazda behind us still under the slipstream, and we're going to end up getting a 136.4 and the Mazda a 136.5. So at the end of the day, you'll have about 2 chances to try to get a good qualifying time and take advantage of the slipstream. But anyways, moving over to the race strategies. We're going to be doing 20 laps at Fuji International Speedway with the Group 3 cars. So this is going to be a 33 to 34 minute race. It is possible to have a race last just under 33 minutes if you're really fast and you play your cards right. So this race, 20 laps, fuel is at ×3, which means that fuel is an issue, which means that you will most likely have to refuel. Fuel saving will be a thing, but you do want to be a little careful about how you go about that. The tower is at ×5, which means that tower will be an issue, so you're going to want to take care of your racing soft and medium tires. Speaking of tires, you have both the racing soft and medium tires available to you, and both tires are required for this race, which means that you're forced to make at least one pit stop. And well, you're only going to want to make one pit stop because the pit loss is longer now. And in terms of pit loss, that pit loss number is going to vary because you do have to refuel. So the less time you spend refueling, your pit loss will be a bit shorter, but the more you have to refuel, then your pit loss will be longer. And as we go through the third sector, this is a handling sector, so this is where you can get away with doing even more short shifting or just being more aggressive on it, as this is the best place to do some short shifting without losing too much time. For the main straight in the first 2 sectors, this is where you want to be a little more careful about short shifting, because you don't want to be short shifting way too much to the point where you're losing time. So in the third sector, that's where you can be really aggressive with the short shifting. However, there is an exception to this, and the exception is if you're under someone's slipstream. So if you see the highlighted box I have right now, or if you just look right behind me, there is a Mazda that is hanging out right behind me, and he's not going to make any moves on me because he's going to be really aggressive with the fuel saving and the short shifting. And we'll move on over to the perspective of the Mazda RX Vision that is hanging out right behind us, and he's going to be pretty aggressive with the short shifting because he is under my slipstream. Don't forget that the slipstream range is 3/4 of a second between yourself and the car that is in front of you. So there's no reason for him to go past me to try to get an overtake done, because with the slipstream, he's able to keep up with me and even go faster in the main straight, and he's saving a bunch of fuel. So really, there's no reason for him to try to make a move on me. And he'll pretty much make the move on me once we go into the pit stops, because he'll be refueling for a lot less time. Whereas with me, I'm being a bit more aggressive. I'm going towards more of an all-out pace, so minimal fuel saving, which means that I'll be spending more time refueling. So because he is still under my slipstream while I'm still trying to go all out, that's going to end up biting me pretty hard. And well, I ended up biting myself because I ended up almost spinning out at one point. But you'll see why the aggressive fuel saving while under the slipstream is going to help out this Mazda player a lot. And we'll skip on over towards the end of lap 10. And in the third sector, just be nice and careful through here because you don't want to force the car through these turns, as the car will get upset if you force the car through there. Just ease the car through these turns, be nice and gentle, and the car will not try to spin out and you won't wear your tires out so fast. And we're at the end of lap 10, so our tires are pretty worn out, our racing soft tires are worn out, so it's time to go into the pit stop. So we use the racing soft tires, so that tire requirement's out of the way, and now it's time to switch on over to the racing medium tires. Now do notice that the Mazda player, he's actually not going to end up having to refuel because he was able to fuel save so much that he has just enough fuel to be able to finish the race. So he's already out of the pits and I have to refuel a bit. So what was once a 1.5 second gap is now a 6 to 7 second gap. And that is because the Mazda, he was able to fuel save so much under my slipstream to the point where he doesn't have to refuel at all. So he pretty much played his cards perfectly and he ended up playing me like a fiddle. And once again, the pit loss is going to depend on how much you have to refuel. So in my case, I ended up losing around 25 seconds, whereas with the Mazda, he ended up losing around, I would say 18 to 19 seconds because he pretty much only went in for a tire change. So both the Mazda and I, we went from racing soft to racing medium tires because we started in the front. But if you're starting in the middle or in the back of the pack, start on the racing medium tires and halfway into the race, switch on over to the racing soft tires. And we'll skip on over towards the very end of the race just to see how worn the racing medium tires are. And yeah, you're going to be feeling that tire wear, so just try to be nice and careful, especially through sector 3, so you don't destroy your tires early on. So yeah, at the end of the race, we actually did gain a bit of time on the Mazda as he's not that fast when it comes to the main straight, so that's where the advantage comes to us. And we're still pushing the car quite a bit, so that also helped out a bit. But unfortunately, not enough for us to be able to catch up to him. So once again, I know I've mentioned this about a trillion times at this point, but Slipstream is going to be ultra useful, so take full advantage of it. And when you're under someone's Slipstream, you can definitely be a bit more aggressive about the short shifting to save more fuel. And through the third sector, be nice and gentle and do your short shifting there as well. And the racing soft and medium tires, you have both of them available to you, and both tires are required for this race, so make sure you use both tire compounds. So you're pretty much just doing a one stop, pitting around halfway into the race. And also the fuel mapping, I don't think that you'll need to really touch it, so you'll pretty much be leaving it at 1 unless if you come into a weird situation where you do need to adjust the fuel mapping, like if you're just about to run out of fuel, then that's where you touch it. But for the most part, you're pretty much going to be leaving that fuel mapping at 1 at all times. And before we go on over to overtakes and penalty serving zones, we end up getting a 33 minutes and 10 seconds. Reality, that probably could have been a 33:08, but I kept on messing up the third sector, so I've got a bit of work to do. And if there's one sector that you really want to nail down, it's that third sector. But anyways, places to overtake and the penalty serving zone. The main straight, the best place to get the overtake done because you have a super long main straight. So with the Slipstream, you can use it to your advantage to get past someone. And after that, this turn, very situational, but you don't want to try to go for an overtake as this turn can lead to some incidents, pushing someone off wide or getting off track penalties. So from turns 2 and on, you pretty much want to stay in a single file line. The next place where it's possible to get an overtake done is actually going to be through this smaller quote-unquote straight. So this place you can also take advantage of the slipstream, but it's not going to be as advantageous as the one from the main straight. So you pretty much want to get the overtake done right here, because the third sector, this is where you're going to pretty much be in a single file line and just try to be nice and clean through here, because if you start to make some mistakes, then you're really going to be punished by the track itself and people will try to barge past you. And these last two turns, people take different lines, so just be careful about where the other cars around you are hanging out at. And the last turn right here can also be a place to get an overtake done, especially as you're crossing through the start finish line for the last time or when it's the final lap. So that final turn, very situational for overtaking. And if you didn't spot the penalty serving zone, it's actually on the main straight. So it starts just after the main straight starts, so you don't want to get any sort of penalty at all, because if you have to serve a penalty, you're going to be punished big time. And especially at the start of the race, if you have to serve a penalty, then your race is pretty much jeopardized to the point where your race could potentially already be over. So do your best to not get a penalty at all. But anyways, that's all for me. So this is a one-stop race. Go soft medium if starting in the front half, medium soft if starting in the back half. Both tires are required, so make sure you use both tire compounds, take advantage of the slipstream, and get ready for Punch City. But that's all from me. I'm going to sign off now. If this guide helps, you can press the like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I do have a membership program thing, which you can check out in the description down below. But that's all from me. This is Mr. MCA, wishing you a good race, and I'll see you in the next video.